Hey everybody, and welcome to This Week on Point North. I'm Alistair Stevens, and it's the end of April. Can you believe it? We're already here. We've already burned through like a third of this year. Time is a weird social construct that I'm beginning to believe just exists to foil my plans to A, produce more podcasts, and B, get more rest. I know that those seem contradictory plans, but still, I'm complicated. Anyway, this week on Point North, we have a really fun selection of readings to get to. We have a special event to look forward to right at the end of the week. We have the announcement of the new book club texts over in the Patreon exclusive book club. Probably I'm going to talk a little about Infinity War at some point. You guys have seen Infinity War, right? Because I'm about to spoil everything. That's a joke. That's a joke. I'm definitely not going to spoil anything from Infinity War. If you want spoilers for Infinity War, stay tuned to commonroomradio.com this afternoon when our Excelsior discussion episode, like a 2-hour beat by beat exploration of Infinity War and all that it means to us, will go live. That is a spoiler-filled discussion, but will be an absolute blast. It's going to be I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what the response is to that episode. We had a great time going to see Infinity War. It's a very good movie, I'll say that much, right? No more than that. No spoilers shall pass these lips for at least another couple of weeks like that. Let's not, we don't have to be caught up in this internet hot take culture, right? We can actually be considered for a little bit. We can reflect a little bit. I was thinking after the discussion that I had with Sarah and Vinton for Excelsior about doing another little one-shot or something for Infinity War, because the more I thought about it, the more I had to say, and then I thought, no, I can actually do that in a few weeks. I don't have to be so immediately reactive. I can sit with the text a little bit and see where I end up. So more on that possibly coming within the next few weeks. We'll see how that works out. This week, though, let me do a quick gloss of the week ahead, and then we'll get into some fun tangential conversations here. Our week begins this evening with the patron-exclusive book club session. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We're going to talk about the end of Good Omens, basically. This is the 7th session that we're going to run on Good Omens, and we're also going to announce the new book club texts. As I said, we're going to pick 2. I haven't looked at the poll this morning. I have to tell you, the last time I looked, we were going to end up discussing the first season of the BBC Sherlock series and Frank Herbert's Dune, but anything could have happened between then and now. So I actually have no idea what is in the running right now, but that's going to be an exciting revelation this evening. So if you support Point North Media via Patreon, via Coffee, via paypal.com/me, or no, paypal.me/Point North Media, I guess it is actually, then you'll have access to that discussion. That's going to be a great time, just wrapping up Good Omens and looking ahead to what we're going to do over the course of the next couple of months. Then tomorrow evening, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, Dear Mr. Potter 52, The Curse That Failed, where we just take a weird tangent. And it's a really good tangent, but this is the point in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire where the structure is kind of pushing back against itself in a really interesting way. Like I'm right on the fence right now as I prep for tomorrow night's session. I'm caught in this ambiguous state, this ambivalent state between believing that J.K. Rowling is doing this completely deliberately and that she's generating this internal kind of narrative tension here in the third act of Goblet of Fire, or that it's just a really happy accident. Either way, I think it works for the book, but it takes some thought to navigate. Basically, what we're talking about this week is the Pensieve. I'm looking ahead to the third task, but I'm not convinced that we're going to get there this week. So really, we're going to spend some time with the Pensieve and just a lot of heavy exposition that is revealed to us in an atypical fashion for Dear Mr. Potter. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion as we look at what it is that J.K. Rowling is doing and how it is accomplishing its either deliberate or providentially accidental ends, I suppose. So that is Dear Mr. Potter 52, The Curse That Failed. See, it's not The Boy Who Lived, it's The Curse That Failed. That's a really interesting inversion that we get from Dumbledore in this reading. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. Tomorrow evening, that's May the 1st. You guys were here already. Tuesday, May the 1st for Dear Mr. Potter. Then on Thursday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. Just very consistent this week. Very consistent scheduling this week. 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on Thursday evening. That is May the 3rd. There and Back Again, 61. Out of Doubt, Out of Dark. We are getting to the climax of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. I can put it off no longer. I am going to weep in this week's podcast. It's just going to happen. It's pretty fantastic. I've got, I don't know, some hope, but not no hope, I suppose, of actually covering the rest of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields and getting into the Pyre of Denethor. If I have to make a choice, then we're just going to do the Pelennor Fields. We're just going to really pour our focus and our attention and our enthusiasm into this reading. It is spectacular. And if the first half of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields has either left you cold, then believe me, the second half will redeem it. Or if the first half piqued your interest and roused your blood and made you feel things that you haven't felt in a long time about, like, you know, combat and warfare and the forces of good coming to a riotous climax with the forces of evil. It's really, really good, and the second half is even better, right? We've done the Éowyn Witch King of Angmar stuff, which is great, and now we're moving into the passing of Theoden King and the rise of Éomer, and then the greatest Jew catastrophe in Tolkien, and all of this good stuff. So that's at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central this coming Thursday evening. And then on Friday evening, the long-awaited Princess Bride live commentary track is happening. Now, I will urge you all to head on over to youtube.com/pointnorthmedia, where you can subscribe to that channel so that you get the notification. We are doing the live commentary for the Princess Bride over on YouTube. This is our opportunity to kick the tires of YouTube's new broadcast system. I noticed, was it Melissa who was talking about being on a PC today and not not on the Crowdcast app? I'm scrolling back to try and find it. Yes, Melissa, there we go. Look at this memory. Mind like a steel trap, I tell you. Yeah, I know the Crowdcast app is not like our favorite app in the world. And certainly it's the broadcast platform here at Crowdcast isn't quite as reliable as I would like it to be, is the thing. So YouTube might be working better now. They've made some major changes since the last time we spent some time over on YouTube, which I guess was... Well, this is the 23rd episode of This Week on Point North, and I think we've done all of those over on Crowdcast. So it's probably been, the better part of 8 or 9 months, I suppose, since we transitioned away from YouTube for the live broadcast. So now might be the time to come back. We'll kick the tires on that Friday evening. That is going to be the Princess Bride live commentary track, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We're going to do that thing. That's going to be a really, really fun discussion. If you haven't done a live commentary track before, you will need your own copy of the movie. I can't stream the movie. I can't stream the audio or anything else. It's just going to be... this, basically. You're going to be looking at me as I watch the movie and talk about it with you all in the company of the chat. We're going to be able to hang out, and it's the Princess Bride. It's going to be an absolute blast. Again, as I always promise when I'm thinking about a live commentary, I am going to spend some time thinking about like Princess Bride appropriate cocktails and see if I can come up with something that'll be really fun for Friday evening. But my track record of following through with that is very limited, I have to admit. I'm not much of a mixologist, is the thing. Like, I make excellent drinks. If you guys ever find yourselves in Oklahoma City, feel free to drop by and I will fix you the best Manhattan you will ever have in your life. Like, I make good drinks, but I'm not terribly good at coming up with new ones, I suppose. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe we can maybe we can find some resource online. Maybe there's a BuzzFeed article, like the 8 best cocktails that come out of the Princess Bride. Yeah, I'll need to give that some thought. I feel like there's an obvious one just waiting there for me, but you know what? We'll catch up with it. Let me see here. Sosa Sundar is saying here in the chat, I really need to go re-listen to the Labyrinth one-shot. Saw the movie in the theater last night. It was so great to see the remaster. I was going to go and see the Labyrinth remaster last night and just unfortunately couldn't make it. And now I think I'm not going to be able to see it. I don't think I'm going to be able to make that work because I have book club tonight and then Dear Mr. Potter tomorrow night. But if it comes back into movie theaters, I will see what I can do because, yeah, Labyrinth on the big screen, pretty amazing. Sailor Melissa's saying that she's also listening to the new Hamilton song, First Burn, which... damn, y'all, damn. And also playing the new Harry Potter game, the Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery. I have that installed on my phone. I have played maybe the first 2 minutes, maybe like a minute and a half of that game. The art style's super cute. I hear some complaints about the free-to-play mechanic, you know, the trade-off mechanic for, I guess, buying more energy or accelerating things that are going to take time to happen or whatever it is. I've seen some complaints online about that, but looks cute at least. I didn't realize that it was set prior to Harry Potter, right? It's set in that 11-year period between, or 10-year period, I suppose, between the fall of Voldemort and Harry arriving at Hogwarts. So that's really interesting, which I completely understand, you guys, because we want our characters, right? Like, we want the ensemble cast, and we don't want to deal with Harry. So that makes a lot of sense. That is prime real estate if you're wanting to tell stories in the Harry Potter universe that aren't epic fantasy fighting against the Dark Lord kind of stories there. So I'm really interested in that and really interested to get to it. Aaron say reschedule the book club maybe. You know what? I can't reschedule the book club anymore. I just can't do it. It has to be a fixed thing. Remember, we moved the book club to Mondays because I think I had to reschedule something like 5 Friday book clubs in a row, which is I don't know. I'm sure it is much more frustrating for you guys than it is for me, to be completely honest and transparent about this, right? But it still sucks. I hate having to reschedule a live session. It's always done only out of direst need. It's only in direst exigency that I want. I'm compelled to reschedule a live session, and it always carries with it this frustration and this desire to do it. You know, because so much of my week is built around these rhythms of absorption and then preparation and then performance, I suppose, broadcasting, right? So tomorrow, for example, okay, tomorrow evening, I know that I'm going to be doing Dear Mr. Potter at 9 p.m. local time. So my whole day builds up to that. I'm going to start tomorrow morning with a cup of coffee and my copy of Goblet of Fire, and I'm going to reread these chapters. I reread Goblet of Fire right before starting this series, but I don't generally skip ahead as we're going chapter by chapter, right? So I've read Goblet of Fire, I don't know, maybe 3 times, and seen the movie probably 3 times too. So like I have internalized the story. I know what we're doing. And I reread the entire book right before we started. So tomorrow I'm going to read the pages first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee, with a slice of toast, and just kind of sink into that world. And then I will probably do some, I'll move around a little bit. Like I'll go for a run, or I'll work in the yard, or I'll go grocery shopping or something, like listening to the audiobook, because that gives me a really nice different perspective on it. And that allows the thoughts to percolate. That allows me to kind of begin to figure out what I'm doing. And then as I move into the afternoon, the rising action of my days lets me prep the slides and pull my notes and like look up any interesting theories or thoughts that I have, and kind of clarify some plot details and all of that kind of usual stuff. And all of this is to say that any given broadcast day, like, ascends to the broadcast. So by the time it gets to 9 o'clock, I have been immersed in Harry Potter all day and I am good to go. And then if that has to get pushed, particularly at the last minute, it's enormously frustrating, mostly because, honestly, I just lose a whole day then, because I have to come back into that cycle whenever the podcast is going to happen. That's why if you've ever seen me do 2 podcasts back to back, the second one is that's wild times, you guys, because, yeah, that gear shift can be can be very easy and fluid, and sometimes has surprised me how easily and fluidly it has happened, and sometimes it can be real, real rough. So yeah, the ramp up to a live broadcast is tough, and I'm already ramping up. I was reading Good Omens this morning, ready to talk about it this evening. So yeah. Let me see here. Yes, Becca saying the 2 podcast days get a little riotous. That they do. Aaron saying, I'm really impressed by that build-up for podcast. It's fascinating. It sounds kind of tantric. You know what? It's not inappropriate, certainly. Yeah. The last half hour before any live broadcast, I am... What am I? Anxious is the wrong word, but I get like a very specific energy. I've been doing this for... doing live broadcasts like this for 5 years. I've been doing podcasting for the better part of a decade now. And the last half hour, like literally the last half hour, I get the same Crowdcast notification as you guys get. So at 8:30, I will get that beep, half an hour until you're ready to go. And by that point, I already have my slides checked. I've got everything locked. I know what I'm going to talk about. I've got the lights set up here in the studio. Usually I'm ready to go. So I spend the last half hour just like pacing, just like in this weird, well, I can't do it yet, and I can't do anything else, and I've got to, sometimes there are, last minute technical checks to do and that kind of thing. And then we'll do the live show, and then after the live show, sometimes my energy is really up and sometimes it is really down. And it has nothing to do with like the quality of the show or even like how difficult the show was. It's just a weird alchemical thing. Sometimes I will come out and just crash, and sometimes I will be fired up for like 2 hours afterwards. Like I won't go to bed until like 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm just fired up about what we've been talking about and discussing. It's a really great job, you guys, is the thing. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, particularly weeks like this where I'm doing, what am I doing? This live broadcast, the book club tonight, DMP on Tuesday, there and back again on Thursday, Princess Bride on Friday. I also have an Excelsior podcast recording for the first volume of Jason Aaron's Mighty Thor this coming Friday. So, that's a what, 6 podcast week? Oh, 7 podcast week. I'm also doing a bonus episode this week. So 7 podcast week. It's quite a lot. Plus ongoing prep for Story in Star Wars. Stay tuned, right? There is a significant date coming up in Star Wars lore. That is all I'll say. I shall say no more. Anyway, good. Oh, a good cocktail. Serena de Bergerac recommending a good cocktail called the Man in Black. That's pretty good. Art recommending the Princess Buttercup as an ice cream dish. Sounds good. I like that too. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Art is Googling Princess Bride food and drink recipes. The Princess Buttercup is an ice cream dish. Sounds good. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that working. The Man in Black is very good. Yeah, something wine and iocane powder. I don't know. I'm not sure that there's a thing that you can do with that. I immediately want to go to the, I am not left-handed. Is there a drink we can do there? Like it's something with a twist, but the twist is right-handed. I'm bad at this. This is what I'm saying. I'm bad at this. So you guys can send your suggestions, and maybe I'll tweet some suggestions out between now and the live broadcast on Friday. Speaking of which, I think I have to. Eclipse of Insanity is a drink name. Is very good, Sailor Melissa. That's very, very good. And Sarah is suggesting Dust to the Rim in Iocane. Yeah, like a powdered sugar kind of thing. That would be. I mean, depending on the drink, I guess. Oh, obviously, Friday is Friday is a day of special significance, followed by Cinco de Mayo. So maybe margaritas would not be out of the question for Friday evening, right? Like I'm thinking, leaning into that idea. Yeah. I'm also thinking, I don't know, obviously it's just the connection with liquids, I suppose, but when I'm thinking of Princess Bride cocktails, I just think of when that sluice gate opens in the machine and the water flows and Count Rogan is sucking the life out of Wesley with the machine. Yeah, maybe there's something there. I don't know. This is not my area of special expertise. You killed my father should involve brandy, says Strick. Actually, okay, yes, Strick, you have done it there. Yes, you couldn't buy brandy, right? That's what we need. We need some fantastic brandy-based cocktail called "You Killed My Father." That is what we're looking for. That's very, very good. Yes. Aaron awarding 10 million points here in the chat. That's very... Oh, for MOUS from Serena, margaritas of unusual size. Very good. Yeah, like the goldfish full is what I just said on a podcast. Maybe I don't need another margarita here is what I'm saying. Let's wrap up here, you guys, because yeah, it's a busy day and I've got to go and edit that Infinity War Excelsior episode and get that out to you. So this evening, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, the Patreon-exclusive book club, the 7th session on Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. We will also announce the winners of this week's vote. He said, buying time as he tries to click through and can't resist his curiosity any longer and goes to look up exactly who is winning right now. Just buying time and rambling here. Okay, so right now, yep, as confirmed. I can confirm as we expected, in fact. Sherlock Season 1 will be the next text that we discuss in the book club. So that's nice and easy. We'll just break that out one episode per week, I think. Starting next week. I see no reason to delay that. So yeah, we'll do all 3 episodes of the first season of the BBC Sherlock series. Starting next week, we'll talk a little about... I do want to talk a little about the history of Arthur Conan Doyle. It would be really interesting to... Oh, that is interesting, actually. Maybe we can do a compare... Well, no, because mostly it's just pun titles, right? It would be interesting to do a compare and contrast on each of the pun titles for the new BBC Sherlock and the original Sherlock Holmes story that inspired that title. I'll need to pay closer attention to that, basically, and give that some thought. I would like to do a little bit on the history of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the history of Sherlock Holmes, and maybe a little bit on the history of Stephen Moffat, who I think is a very interesting, though not necessarily straightforward writer. Maybe we'll do an introductory session. Maybe we'll make it a 4-episode series on the BBC Sherlock series. We'll do an introductory session where I can talk about the production a little bit, and then we can dive deep into each episode after that. That sounds pretty good to me. Okay, so that will happen. And then following that, unless the poll changes by the time we close it at like 9 o'clock Central Time tonight, Dune by Frank Herbert. It's a hell of a book, you guys. It's a knockout book, is what it is. I don't love Frank Herbert's prose, as I've said before, but I don't need to love Frank Herbert's prose. I don't always love J.K. Rowling's prose, to be completely honest about it. Like, she's particularly in the first 2 books, I think J.K. Rowling is a perfectly serviceable writer. I don't always love Stephen King's prose. Like, Stephen King is not a particularly gifted wordsmith. He is a particularly gifted storyteller. That is true of Stephen King. It is true of J.K. Rowling. It is true of Frank Herbert. The ideas contained within Dune. I believe that the copy of Dune that I have here has a cover quote from Arthur C. Clarke, who compares Dune to The Lord of the Rings in terms of the ambition of the world building. And I'm not sure that I would go quite that far, and certainly not the consistency of the world building. But Dune is an epic novel containing epic ideas and has epic things to say about the human condition, and not simple things either. Not like one reductive, easily encapsulated thesis statement on what it is to be human or what it is to be inhuman. It offers some very different perspectives, and we'll be able to dive very deep into that. Probably 8 sessions, I would think. Probably 8 sessions, maybe. Well, okay, 8 sessions for the novel, which means we'll do at least 9. And then at least 1 session on the David Lynch movie. Like, I'm not passing up the opportunity to talk about the David Lynch Dune, you guys. Like, I can't do it. I'm congenitally unable to resist that opportunity. So we'll definitely talk about that too. So that's probably going to take us, 2 or 3 months, I guess. So that will take us out, let's say 4 months for all of that. That's a solid chunk of podcast material there, you guys. And I'm absolutely thrilled. Some support is also present for Hamilton Obviously, we were wanting to talk about Hamilton as a text, as a narrative. That is currently in third place. To Kill a Mockingbird in fourth place. In fifth place, we have a tie between Fahrenheit 451, do some Bradbury, that would be interesting, and Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. Oh, and The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, both novel and adaptation, I guess we would talk about there. That would be fascinating too. So if any of those lower tier options sound really good and you're a patron of Point North Media, head on over to the Patreon page, patreon.com/PointNorthMedia, and you can find the link to the poll there and you can go cast your vote. Dune Live Commentary, says Angela. Oh my God. That is a path to madness, Angela, is what that is. That is a path to madness. I love me some David Lynch, and I have come to love the Dune movie. I really do. But damn, I am not sure. I don't know. Maybe. You know what? If there's demand for it, then we'll do it. I think that it could be really fun. It could be like the last podcast I ever produced. Like just the last line that comes up at the end of that commentary is, and Alistair was never seen again after that fateful night, right? I just go off into the desert somewhere and think a lot about fear and how it's the mind killer. Like, just go off and do that. Yeah. Okay. Amanda saying, really, you can't go wrong with any of the texts you listed. You know, that is always the hardest thing. And Art, yes, Art wants confirmation. Isn't Patrick Stewart in the Dune movie? Yeah, Patrick Stewart. You got your Kyle MacLachlan in there. You got your Dean Stockwell in there. It's a really interesting and weird oh, and Sting, of course. Let's never forget that Sting is in that movie. No, Amanda saying, really, you can't go wrong with any of the text you listed. The short list, the long list, honestly, for the book club selection is always so fascinating. There is nothing on there that I wouldn't love to talk about, honestly. Yeah, everyone wins, basically. Whatever comes out, everyone wins. I do feel a little bad for some perennial underdogs. The Time Traveler's Wife is right there in the middle of the pack. The Name of the Wind, which I was absolutely expecting to win this one. I was absolutely expecting Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind to take this poll right there in the middle of the pack, along with The Magicians by Lev Grossman, The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, which I know we've talked about a million times, talking about a million times, just hasn't quite pushed through. Stormfront by Jim Butcher, always a bridesmaid, never quite cutting it, but who knows? We'll figure it out. You know, we've got plenty of time. Over the course of the next, 20 or 30 years that we're going to spend together here at Point North Media, we're going to have the chance to talk about a lot of books, you guys. So everything will get its turn. Everything will get its turn. All right, that I think is going to do. Oh, actually, I have some questions here. Let me see. Becca asking me, so since you said it on Excelsior, exactly when will the Bible as literature thing be a real thing? Also, I blew coffee out my nose. Okay. Yeah, I made a joke about the character Meek in Thor Ragnarok, the last commentary track that we released for Excelsior, which went out on Saturday evening, about half an hour after we finished recording that podcast. That was a really fun edit, let me tell you. I made a joke about the character Meek and how he will inherit the earth. And yes, the Bible as Literature podcast is going to happen. Actually, Susa Sundari might be able to help me here. Chris Sims, comics writer Chris Sims, has, I believe, with his longtime friend and occasional co-creative partner, they've done work together, right? Benito Cereno. They just launched, is it called Apocrypals? Is that the name of it? Aaron, you probably know this better than I do. Our minds are in sync. Yes. There it is. You just posted it to the chat. That's fantastic. Yes, a semi-not serious Bible podcast. I like Apocrypals. Yes. Chris Sims and Benito Cereno. I haven't yet had a chance to listen to it, but I like every single podcast that Chris Sims put out. I was lucky enough to record an episode of Xeno Warrior Business with him just a few months ago, which was absolutely lovely and honestly, like, podcast goals, you guys. Hashtag podcast goals. That was pretty great to record an episode with Chris and Ali. Yeah, good. So yeah, you can definitely check out Apocrypals. I'm looking forward to catching up with that. But yeah, I do want to do this. I do. I can't imagine doing it before There and Back Again is done, and There and Back Again isn't going to be done for another year. So maybe after that. I would like to delve into that, but it's a very specific and very niche kind of podcast is the thing that also takes a huge amount of effort. So it's one of these huge investment, low reward kind of deals. So I need to give that some thought, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there's like a crowdfunding thing that I can do for that. Maybe there's like a Kickstarter or something that I can do to like fund the entire run of the series and kind of break out the structure of that series. Now I am going to be thinking about the structure of that series all day. That is my life now, is thinking about the structure of that series. I love breaking down subjects into podcast structures, right? Anyway, yes, someday, Becca, the more that I think about it and the more that I talk about it, I was actually chatting with Vinton Bain after the Excelsior recording. Vinton's, a theological major in college, or was a theological major in theology major in college, I should say, and has given it a lot of thought and works with the church here in Oklahoma City, and is very smart and educated and insightful in that space. And we've had some really good conversations. So I would love to approach that as literature. I think is exactly the way to do it. And not just as literature, right? Because as literature kind of suggests that we're interested in the structure of the thing more than the substance of the thing. And what I want to do is study the Bible as narrative. That's the hook, right? That's the angle that I want, is getting into the actual stories. Don't look at this primarily as theology, and don't look at this primarily as literature. Look at it as storytelling, and figure out like what the deeper push and pull of that narrative influence is within the frame of the Bible. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. And it's not something that, with that specific approach, that I've ever seen done. So yeah. At some point we will get to that, I promise. Yes. And also history, says Becca. Yes. Aaron saying, my degree focus was pre-Christian religious movements of the West, i.e. the Mediterranean. That's fantastic. And Becca and Angela both agreeing that Vinton is the best of us. I got to tell you guys, Vinton Bain is the best man that I have ever had the honor of knowing in real life. He's just a fantastic fellow. As you know, if you listen to Excelsior, just an incredibly warm and wise person who has a depth of knowledge and a breadth of knowledge that I find just joyous. I love talking to him about pretty much any subject. So I'm also hoping that at some point in the future we'll have the opportunity to podcast about other topics and see how that works out. Yes, I don't know. Oh, Aaron is saying, I'm really going to miss the Excelsior commentary tracks. Can you guys please continue them by going through all the comic book adaptation movies out there? Please start with the best comic book movie ever, Josie and the Pussycats. I can't confirm that that's the best comic book movie ever, obviously, until we put it on the big Road to Infinity War list, I guess. We really like the commentary tracks. The commentary tracks are really fun. We are going to do more, certainly. We have, in fact, a Black Panther commentary track coming up in like 3 weeks, as soon as the DVD is released for that. And then obviously when Infinity War cycles through, we'll do a commentary track for that. We have some scheduling announcements with regard to Excelsior coming up in the next couple of weeks. So things are going to be a little more open moving forward over the summer. So we'll see. Yeah, it's entirely possible that we will do more commentary tracks. I kind of like the idea of just putting up polls and just allowing listeners to select the comic book movie that we study next. I think that could be really, really fun. It does mean that we're going to end up watching, terrible superhero movies from the 90s, probably. But yeah. Also, the X-Men series. Vinton and I are, if you've listened to the podcast, huge X-Men fans, and the opportunity to talk about the X-Men movies would be really interesting. So we'll see. I really can't make any promises, and I certainly can't make promises on behalf of Vinton and Sarah over at Excelsior. But yes, we really like podcasting together, and I can't imagine that we will pass up the opportunity to do more of that thing. Guys, let's wrap this up. I've got to go and get to work and edit this podcast and prep for this evening and do all the things that I just described. My whole process for the day, right? Begins here. The ramp up to this evening's book club session begins right here. Thank you so much for joining me for this week on Point North. As ever, of course, you can find all of this information over on pointnorthmedia.com. The blog post, if you scroll down past the podcast album arts there on the front page, you'll find a link to this week on Point North. Album art this week taken from a brilliant picture of the old town of Edinburgh for no particular reason, except that I love Edinburgh and it recently featured in a movie. I shall say no more than that. So you can head on over to pointnorthmedia.com. You can find that. You can, of course, also find the links to the calendar, to the live broadcast calendar. You can follow me at Crowdcast, crowdcast.io/pointnorthlive. You can and should head on over to YouTube, youtube.com/pointnorthmedia, where you can subscribe to that channel and you'll get notifications about the Princess Bride live session on Friday. That is going to do it, you guys. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always. I will talk to you either tonight or tomorrow night for DMP, I am sure. Until then, take care. Have a great Monday. Bye, all.